Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Wikipedia Weekly. I'm your host, Andrew Lee, also known as user Fuzzheado on English Wikipedia. So thanks again for joining us on the podcast. We are very excited today for episode 133 to have a guest, Dr. Netha Hussain, and we're going to talk to her about COVID-19 articles specifically. And if you're watching us on one of multiple platforms, you might be seeing us on Facebook Live. You might be seeing us on Twitter. You might be seeing us on YouTube and also Twitch. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, please share this with your friends. Go out and hit the share button right now. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. And so you'll be notified of new episodes as they come up. And also hit the like button to rank us up so that YouTube will expose this to more people. And if you're on Twitter, feel free to retweet and let folks know. This should be a really exciting episode. We're going to talk to one of the experts on our COVID-19 content in the Wikimedia universe. So Netha has been the creator of a specific project to track all the things going on with COVID-19. We're also going to talk a little bit about how COVID-19 is being covered, or the phenomenon of COVID-19 in India and other places. So thanks again for coming to us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Go ahead and hit share with your folks out there right now so people know about this podcast. But let me first introduce our co-hosts here. We have Jan.
Hello, how are you doing?
Jan hailing from?
So I'm hailing from Sweden right now in Amsterdam, and most actively active in Wikimedians for Sustainable Development right now.
Excellent. And we also have Richard.
Hi, coming to you from Brooklyn, USA, the belly of the beast.
Excellent. And we have our special guest this week, Netha Hussain. Hi, Netha. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, and thank you for inviting me to the show.
Oh, absolutely.
It's exciting to be here.
We've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm glad we found the time. So tell us a little bit about where you are and what you're doing and what got you into doing this COVID-19 content, which we're very grateful for you to do for doing.
I'm living in Sweden. I'm in Gothenburg, Sweden right now, but I'm originally from India. I'm in Sweden to do my PhD in clinical neuroscience. So it has been 4 years since I have started living here, and I'm loving this place. Yes, I learned a little Swedish too, and that's great. I have been working with Wikimedians, the local Wikimedians in Gothenburg, and going to meetups. And they also run this Wiki Gap event where we write articles about forgotten women, and that's really great. So yeah, that's about what I do here. And yes, I have been editing articles on Wikipedia for like 10 years now. I started in 2010 as a medical student. And as I was studying for my anatomy and physiology and biochemistry subjects in medical school, I understood that the books which I need to refer for understanding more about medicine, they are very expensive. So I looked up the internet to know more about all these subjects. And then, yeah, obviously, when I came to Wikipedia and I saw that, oh, there are some very good articles, but some articles need improvement. And that was how I started editing English Wikipedia. I was also active on Malayalam language Wikipedia. Malayalam is a South Indian language spoken by like 30 million people. Yes. So that was my mother tongue, and I also wrote articles there. And over the last 10 years, I have done pretty much a lot of work in different aspects. I don't like staying at one place and doing one thing, so I moved to Wikimedia Commons and then to Wikidata. Then I have organized events, written blog posts, participated in the Strategy 2030 program. Yeah, so wherever I think I'm useful, I get in there and I do work. And my work on Wikipedia has influenced me as a person as well, because that made me a good writer, a good communicator, and that improved my English, and also Malayalam, of course. Although my native language is Malayalam, I did not have formal education in Malayalam. So writing on Wikipedia helped me to develop my language skills. And the way we choose references for medicine-related articles, like choosing like the hierarchy of evidence, choosing hierarchy of evidence. So I learned this by writing articles on Wikipedia, and that was how I got interested in research. And after my medical studies, I moved on with my PhD. Being a Wikipedian helped me grow as a person, and it also helped others. So I'm very happy that I chose to click the edit button for the first time 10 years ago. Yeah, that's my story.
That's great. And this is something that you don't brag about on your user page, but you are a medical doctor as well, right? You are.
Yes, I am. Yes. I got my medical license in 2016, and soon after I moved to Sweden for my PhD. So I practiced as a doctor for 1 year and then shifted my focus to research. But now that I'm in Sweden and I'm almost finishing my PhD, I will defend my PhD thesis next month. So
Wow.
after that, I plan to work as a doctor for some more time. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So you recently had a write-up in the Wikimedia. I don't want to call it blog because now Wikimedia publishes things in Medium. So I guess it's their official publication talking about folks working on COVID-19 content.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the projects you've been working on and the COVID-19 wiki project that you started to be the focus of a lot of this work here.
Yes. So to begin with, it was in January that we first came to know about this coronavirus disease, and people started talking about it more and more later on. So as a researcher and a medical doctor, I was very interested in how this situation developed, and I was reading very much about this disease. So even before, when I was in medical school, what I would do is if I read about something, I look up the same topic on Wikipedia and see if articles related to that topic need some editing and add the content there. So that was the thing which I have always done. So this time, because this topic is of my interest, I have been following the topic for quite a long time. And I started by editing articles related to COVID-19, and then I figured out that there is this template. Can I show my screen?
Yeah, so let me put on your screen there. There you are.
Yes, so this was a template. It was in this big when we started. So it showed all the articles related to COVID-19 that was, added there. And I would go through the template every day in the morning and see, okay, this is the new article that has come up and so forth. And if there is something that is missing, I started writing about that. So I wrote about mental health issues during the COVID-19 pandemic, falsified medical products that people sell off as, as a cure to COVID-19. I wrote about people who are working with the World Health Organization, some of the leaders who work on the COVID-19 emergency response, and some of the World Health Organization's funding, the funds and the task forces which they have got. I have also written about social stigma following some people who have COVID-19, they experience social stigma. I wrote about that. And also about human rights issues that come up during a pandemic. Yeah, so I think I wrote about 20 to 30 articles on English Wikipedia related to COVID-19 by now. Wow. And I did not start the Wiki project, it was somebody else, but I joined the Wiki project as soon as I saw it. I did not have to think, I knew that this is where I had to work. So I went there. And I'm very grateful to my university for giving me access to all these journal articles. As a researcher, I had access to even paywalled content. So I used my university credentials to read the new developments related to the disease. And later on, I figured out that most journals have published their COVID-19 articles under open access, which I think is a great development because to begin with, there were many of these journals, we had to pay a lot of money to have subscriptions to these journals. And with COVID-19, I think things are changing. People started opening up much more than they used to. And there are many magazines as well. The Economist, the New York Times, all these magazines and the newsletters, they have also started opening up their COVID-19 related content for free. So that was also very helpful for me to do my research. And the World Health Organization, they have a good aggregator of the new researches that come up in this topic. So I would follow them and see, okay, do they have an article related to pregnancy and COVID-19? And I would look at, yeah, there are 4 or 5 articles. And I take that up and I write article related to like COVID-19 in pregnancy. So this is what I do. So I look at the template to see if there's like missing puzzle pieces. It's very much like the globe of Wikipedia where you put the puzzles. So, so in the template, you see if there's a piece missing, and then I go there and fill that up. So I'm mostly writing articles related to the impact of the pandemic and also the issues concerned with the pandemic. Sometimes I go to the main articles like COVID-19 testing and the coronavirus pandemic articles to update them. And on the testing article, what I see is that people really want to push their commercial products into the article to give it more visibility. And most of the testing products, they are in the testing stage right now. So they are not. Some of them are not yet ready to be used in the community. So, but people want to somehow push that kind of information. So it's not only me, but there are many other editors who look at that article and make sure that it's neutral and not so much of biases in terms of commercial products coming in the article. Yeah. Yeah, that's...
We have someone who's Amir says, "Oh, a whole laptop screen of Navbox."
I can put something nice.
No, it's great.
A picture.
On a previous episode, we had noted that this might be the biggest Navbox we've seen in a long time, right? In terms of the length.
I think
this is going to grow.
I think it's great. I think it should get like 10 times bigger. I think as big as this is, it shows the strength of the wiki movement and what you're bringing to it. And that this is like I think it's a new phase, for in some ways of a global crisis that the Wikimedia movement is going through. And this is a new chapter in Wikimedia, and you're helping to write it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that is true. And also, this is not everything. There is a separate template for India and India-related articles on COVID-19. So if we add up all the country templates to this one, it's going to be 10 times bigger anyway. So yeah, we have done such a lot of work collectively. And also, we do not have any textbooks that talk about this disease. So people always come online to check what is new and also to know about the disease, to know the basic facts like about the hand washing or social distancing or the new developments in vaccine research. People come to the internet and maybe Wikipedia is their first landing point. And I think we should give them reliable information.
Well, I think Amir's comment reflects what you said too. And he said, and most people don't see it at all, not because it's collapsed, but it's on mobiles, it's not shown at all because you don't see those nav boxes. It's also at the bottom of articles. But I'm wondering for any of you who work with Wikidata, I've often found myself looking at these nav boxes just to figure out how to organize some of Wikidata stuff, because this is kind of like how people have worked it out on the Pedia. So why not reflect this in Wikidata, right?
Yes.
So go ahead, Jan.
Yes, and it is a tricky thing trying to figure out how they all should connect. Like it's in our human minds, it's very easy to see how they fit together. But in a Wikidata relation, it might be more trickier to find, well, what's the path from the COVID-19 article to the cultural impact? What kind of properties should I use here? So yes, it's. I think this is also useful for Wikipedians or Wikidatians to think like, how do we model more broad topics to fit together in one place? Like we have seen a little of that in GLAMS, where we try to fit together artists with artworks with what they depict. And here we got another kind of view of this.
Yeah. But I guess I think one of Amir's point is that maybe that we should have better representation of a nav box like this on the mobile view. And I think it was a choice made by some developers to not show the nav boxes, and I think there's some good reasons for that because it's complicated and whatever. But I think we should find more ways to represent the messy. We shouldn't be ashamed of the messy. The messy is what makes Wikipedia great.
Yes, I think as an editor, I find it very useful to look at the template and start from there. But I don't know, as a reader, do people prefer to see a big messy list? And especially with the small mobile screen, and they have to like go on looking. I don't know. I don't have the answer.
I think it's a great like 10,000-foot view of a topic, right? It just kind of it's kind of weird. It's like the table of contents is at the bottom of the article, which is the opposite of what you'd think, but it is kind of like that in many ways.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit curious, Netha. When you've been creating like 20, 30 articles here, how do you go about thinking about a new article? Like, how do you find the aspect that will be notable for an article on Wikipedia?
To begin with, I just listen to news, and then I'm like, oh, they are talking about people having a lot of mental health issues during the pandemic. And then let me find out more about that, because I need to know about that. When I'm practicing as a doctor, I need to address this issue. So I go on and look up the internet for content. And usually the World Health Organization, they have very good guidelines on most aspects of the disease, and they're continuing to publish more. So they have been very helpful. So I look up there and see what they have written about that. And then there is the Human Rights Watch, the Amnesty International. The New York Times has very good coverage of many issues from the press side of things. And there are journal articles as well. But because this is a very new disease, there hasn't been enough time to write journal articles about the impact of the disease. So we need to wait to have some studies related to the disease impact. Right now, we have a lot of articles related to disease testing and the treatment, but not so much about how the pandemic is impacting people. Yes, so I look up that and then start with, I have some subheadings in my mind. So it's like, if it's about mental health issues, okay, what are the causes? And I can take up that article. Where is that? Yeah, such a messy list. Mental health. Yeah, it's here. So what are the causes for mental health and how do you prevent that? And different kinds of guidelines for different people. But I should not write it in a way that it's an instruction list. So I have to like rewrite and make it encyclopedic and like long-term consequences and some reports and all the things. Yeah, and if there is a larger article about something, then I also add the see also section. Yes, and then I fill up content under all of these headings. Yeah, so it was easier than I thought because I don't have experience like creating articles from scratch on impact of a pandemic, because I have always been writing articles which I have been very comfortable with, or articles which are very much in focus in my research. So this was something new to me, but I thought that I have to do this anyway because a lot of people are searching about this. And as I went about doing it, I started liking it. And then I went and wrote about human rights issues and people involved and World Health Organization's response to COVID-19 pandemic and so forth. So these are not exactly my areas of expertise, but I somehow managed to make it. Yeah.
Very cool. And could you tell us a little bit about the short version of the COVID-19 article that did you start it or are you fostering it?
Yes, I started it partly because a friend of mine, he asked me that they would like to have the article translated to Telugu language. So then I was like, okay, I should and in small language communities, they have too little resources and they don't have the capacity to translate a full-length English article. And at the same time, the English article is evolving, so we need to time-proof it in some way. So we shouldn't say the exact number of people who have suffered from the disease, because then it will be hard work for them to update it every time. So we need to have a shorter, more time-proof and more culturally neutral article. It should not be very Anglo-centric. So these were the aspects which I had in mind. So I created a short version of the coronavirus disease 2019 article and just put that up on social media and told my friends that, oh, here is something I've done. If your language edition of Wikipedia doesn't have an article about COVID-19, this is something you can translate. And that was how it all started. Right now, it's only me who is doing the short versions. And I do not encourage very new contributors to start writing these articles because of the sensitive nature of the content.
Right.
In some countries, you could even go to jail if you spread misinformation about COVID-19.
Wow.
So then it was like, should I give it more popularity and make a lot of people come into this project? I don't really know. And this is something I think, at least for now, I have only asked my friends who edit in other languages other than English, and who have been experienced with editing, whom I have publicized this work and asked them to make use of it. Yes.
So this is really nice. I mean, this is a problem we have a lot of our articles when it gets to very vertical areas, right? Whether it's medicine or biology or botany or computer science, that these articles can get much more technical and detailed. And it's really cool to see this effort of kind of saying, okay, what do you really want to translate in like 2 or 3 paragraphs so that most languages can get off their feet, right?
Yes. And I don't know if people ask me for more shorter versions, I'm ready to create them. And I haven't received so many requests because I haven't popularized this effort so much. So it's like balancing. You don't want it to be so popular that
was it a conscious effort that you didn't wiki link anything here, right? This is just pure text, right?
Yeah. Because when they translate this, they might not have an article about, say, Hubei province in China. So I just had the plain text.
That's a really interesting approach. I think it also kind of to me, at least when I read it without the wiki links, it kind of de-stresses me a little bit, right? If you're coming from a small language and you're like, oh my God, I don't have links for all those things. What am I going to do? Just don't worry. Just text, and you can hyperlink whatever makes sense for you guys.
Yeah. And also this one needs updation. So this is the version I updated on the 9th of April. Because things are rapidly changing, even scientific information related to the disease is rapidly changing. Even though I tried to time-proof it as much as possible, I would still need to do some updates. So whenever I think that, okay, it's time for another update, I do that.
Right.
And it's also really hard to track who all have used these short versions. So I know that the news has been circulated in some African language mailing lists, some Indian language mailing lists. But I don't really know I don't really know exactly who are the ones translating it. So I cannot actually measure the impact.
I was trying to translate one of their articles.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
And I couldn't use the translate tool because it wasn't it's in the Wikipedia namespace, which made it a little bit tricky. So I translated it by hand. It was the article about testing to Swedish.
Yes, I saw that. And I wrote to the translation, wrote to a Wikimedia Foundation employee who works with this tool about the same problem you said. And he told me that, yes, you can translate from the Wikipedia namespace. You have to put the link with the Wikipedia name. You have to put the whole name, including the Wikipedia.
Right, yeah. There are a bunch of
ensuring that it's the Wikipedia namespace, and it still works. Yeah.
If you have any comments, I think that might be, if it's Amir. Amir's on watching, so if you have any comments, you can chat them.
Amir should know. Yeah, I asked Santosh, and he replied immediately saying that this is fixed. So yeah.
All right, that's good.
Someone mentioned this on screen. You have more up-to-date information in English Wikipedia about 2020 coronavirus pandemic in Slovenia than in Slovenian Wikipedia, which I guess is sometimes the case, right?
Yeah. I think that's the case with many Indian language Wikipedias and English Wikipedia. Very many Indians read news in English. And the article, one of the articles I started was about the 2020 coronavirus pandemic in Kerala, the province which I come from in India. And that is way up to date compared to the Malayalam article related to the same thing. So, and it also grabs a lot more page views in English than in Malayalam. So yeah, that sometimes happens. I think.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, it might we wanted to talk about this with you since you're an expert on this because you come from India. There's a piece that was put on Quartz recently about this, and it was titled, why does India have so few COVID-19 cases and deaths? And I thought this was a fascinating piece because it was done by someone from the medical field, from economics, from different places. In fact, Ruben Abraham here is actually from Kerala, who I know from there. But tell us a little bit about this piece, which I thought it seemed quite responsible. They're not trying to say this is the reason. They try to lay out a whole bunch of phenomena, and the end was just, we don't know. But can you tell us a little bit about some of the dynamics they describe in this piece?
Yeah, it's a very nicely written piece to begin with. And also we are in the pandemic. The pandemic is not over. So we don't really know which approach is the best. So, and what are the factors that might have caused an increase or a decrease in a disease in certain countries. So we can only speculate. And I think they have done a really good job of saying these are the possible reasons of what's happening, of how the disease is spreading in India. And I think one of the strongest factors here is that the disease appeared way later in India than in other countries. Although there were some cases in Kerala from people, there were students who studied in China who came to Kerala and they were tested positive. And after that, for almost 3 weeks, we did not have any new case. And it was then that in Italy that we saw such a huge rise in the number of cases, and then all countries started taking precautions. And it could also be that India does not do so much of COVID-19 testing because of its large population and because of being a little bit lesser on the lesser side of having resources. They cannot procure so many testing kits, and not so much testing is done. And then we have the lockdown, and the lockdown was pretty strict. I would say it's comparable to what they do in Italy. In Sweden, where I live, it's pretty relaxed. You can go out. You can, meet your friends. You can do pretty much everything. But in India, you have to be at your houses. And if you're going out, you need to give a reason for doing that if you're caught by the police. And the fines are also pretty heavy. So you will be fined if you are seen violating the law. And I think the government in India, they are particularly concerned that because it's a densely populated country, and if the disease goes out of control, it's very hard to manage it. So they are taking way stricter precautions ahead of time to make sure that the cases don't rise up to an unmanageable level. So that should be something. And there's also a low share of elderly people. Most Indians are young, and most Indians who travel outside of India are young. So I think this is the demographic group which are not highly affected by the disease. They can survive some way. So not so many elderly people are affected. So that could also be one of the reasons why the death rate is not as high.
Yeah, the stat that was in that article was fascinating. Is that 75% of the population is under the age of 40 in India?
Yeah,
is that
it's
correct?
A growing country.
That's amazing.
India is growing. Yeah.
Right. So compared to China, which has got the inverted pyramid of population, which is bad for this particular phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating. I think it's a great education in you can't compare two countries, with just numbers. You have to take into account so many different factors.
Exactly.
And
that's completely true. And I have seen everybody, because everybody is so worried about the disease, people start to look at the numbers themselves, and they come at wrong conclusions. And it's not, as being a researcher also taught me that it's not the numbers that matters, but you have to look into the numbers and find a reason for why the numbers are there in the first place. So that gives a one needs to have insight before looking at the numbers or the graphs, I would say.
Right. Right. So I think some of the things, if you read this piece, I highly recommend it, not only because I know one of the authors and have a very high opinion about his methodology or his thinking process, but just the demographics of India, the climate of India, which does vary quite a bit north, south. Yeah. And then what inoculations you have when you're young, what that might have a
the
factor.
BCG vaccine. Yeah, it could be a reason. We don't know yet if temperature or humidity or BCG has any effect on COVID-19.
Right.
We don't know for sure, but people have been speculating about this. And if that turns out to be true, it's good for India.
Yeah, so I think it's really an interesting piece. So I'm glad you can give us some feedback on it, because you never know. And I guess this is part of the question I have for you as well. Just so many news stories coming out, and evaluating the validity or the how much to take into account their credibility in terms of our policies of reliable sourcing and verifiability. What have you found so far in terms of looking at just such a wide range of general reporting, medical reporting, and from a variety of places? It's kind of tough to sift good from bad given all this information coming in, right?
That is very true. But what I usually start from is if I look for if there is a journal article from, say, Lancet or Science related to the topic, I look up a lot of the World Health Organization's documentation. They have got really good repository of contents. They also give regular updates on what has been happening from their end. So I make very good use of that. And then there are other United Nations organizations like the United Nations Populations Fund. They have got good population data about domestic violence, about gender impact, and so forth. They have been very useful. And here is where being a researcher helped me. So there's a lot of information, and how do I make sense of it? So I look at, if it comes from the WHO or from the Lancet or from Science, then I could be sure that, okay, this has been validated in some way, and I do not need to think so much about it. But in other cases, when you have pieces from, say, a magazine or a newsletter, then I'm really careful about, is this a good source, or does this sound plausible to me? Sometimes some articles just look plain wrong, especially if they have been written like a month ago, where they are speculating about what would happen in the next year or something like that. So things get outdated pretty soon. So I think if it's common sense to begin with, to see, okay, if some things don't stand in the face value, so I do not need to take them. I need not read them at all. And some other things, I read through them and see, okay, if this is relevant for Wikipedia, and can I rewrite it in an encyclopedic way? And is this relevant after 10 years? So there are like some very fine, nice bits of information which I really want to add. But then does it really have to be on a Wikipedia? So that is also something I always think. So so it goes pretty fast. I don't think about each of these aspects, but it kind of comes intuitively to me, and then I do it. Yeah.
Right,
you've added so many new topics. I wonder, has there been any pushback on some of the topics you've added, and have you navigated that? Have you maybe combined some topics or had some different discussions about that?
Yeah. I wrote an article about Janata Curfew. Janata Curfew was the one-day lockdown which the Indian government has enforced before they had the longer lockdown. So my thinking was that, okay, India is very likely to have a longer curfew later on, so this curfew is going to be extended. So I wrote an article about that, and then it got eventually merged into the larger lockdown article. That was pretty good, because the smaller lockdown did not need an article on its own. And I also wrote about the gendered impact of the pandemic. And this article was tagged for deletion. It is still tagged for deletion. I can show you where it is.
Yeah, I'll turn on your screen there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wrote this article, and then it was about how the coronavirus pandemic impacts the genders differently. And we know from research that it's a lot more men who are dying of the disease, but at the same time, it's a lot more women who are vulnerable to the disease because they work in healthcare sectors. And so there's a gender difference in mortality, and there is a gender disparity in leadership in combating the disease. And the socioeconomic impact are also kind of different for men and women. So I wrote about all these things, and it got tagged for deletion. And on the articles for deletion page, actually, very many people told that the article should be kept. So I was happy about that. Yeah, so this is ongoing now. And the contents which I added to the COVID-19, coronavirus 19, the main article to begin with, I think not many of them stand now because they have been rewritten and modified and so forth. So, and yeah, that should happen on a Wikipedia to synthesize the content. We don't need to have long paragraphs about, say, one small aspect. So in the process of like synthesizing a whole bunch of text, then some of the content which I have written has disappeared. But I think that's natural when you contribute to Wikipedia.
I think, yeah, if we would look at the deletion debate for folks who haven't really looked at these in detail before, anyone can put up an article for deletion, but then if you look at the result, as you said, you can say either keep, merge, or delete, and it's keep. This is what we would call a kind of what we call snow keep, meaning that it's so many people think it should be kept that we should probably just close the discussion at this point. And yeah, there was I think you point out, or someone else pointed out, there's a whole Lancet article with almost the exact same title as this article.
Yeah, so I got the idea from the Lancet article to begin with. So then I wrote about that. And then we got a new article about domestic violence during the pandemic. That's
right?
also pretty nice. And I think more and more such articles from the socioeconomic side will come up very soon. Because a lot of research is also going on related to this, and it takes some time for all these research articles to be published.
Is there a way to track like when the latest articles related to COVID-19 are created through this dashboard somewhere, or?
I don't know of that.
I don't think so. Is there? Maybe you can look at the nav box, edit history, and just see when things get added there, perhaps. Yeah, because I don't see a way to see those things. Well, I don't know about alerts here. So. Oh, so this is just showing. Oh yeah, so here's the article deletion. At least it's put in here.
Yeah, that's true. And
social distancing measures.
There is also a tab there which says sources on the COVID-19 project page. So it gives a good list of all the sources you can go to on the top. Now you clicked on alerts, and there is also sources. Or maybe I can show you on my screen. Project.
Just a short side note here while you're looking it up. I just noticed that the main article, 2019-20 coronavirus pandemic, has just passed 1,000 references.
Wow.
1,007.
Wait, last time we had a show, we noted it had 600, right? So now
yes,
we have 1,000.
Yes.
Wow. That's getting up there.
Is there a list somewhere of the most articles by the number of references?
This one should be up there.
Yeah. I would like to see it. I've seen it anecdotally, but I don't know if anyone's ever studied it properly.
So it's getting close to doubling. Yeah, go ahead, Netha.
Yeah, so here are the sources, which, it's some very helpful volunteer has put up all these sources where we can look up for finding stuff related to COVID-19 and update the articles with. And this is very useful.
That's great, yeah.
And we also have the research team of Wikimedia Foundation who have got very nice webpage showing all these research efforts surrounding COVID-19. We can show you that as well. I think I closed that one. impossible to find. I think it's on my Gmail. It's okay. You will see my Gmail.
Oh, we don't have to. You can go. You can find your mail first.
Yeah, we don't.
It's okay. Yeah. So here is it. I can. Yeah, it's called COVID-19 related data and analysis. So I think it should be interesting for people who are working with data. Yeah, here is it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, today in the evening. Yeah, right. Like 2 hours ago, they published it on all the mailing lists. So I found it from there. So they have some good resources related to how many articles are there related to COVID-19 and what kind of page views has it got, and some data which people can use for data analysis and so forth. That's really good.
Cool. Yeah, let me put a link to that up there so people can see that. So that is that link there. WikimediaFoundation.org/COVID-19
/data.
and /data. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff there.
Yeah.
And it even shows like page views and everything. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. We had showed some graphs before about what people were looking up in terms of like toilet paper, surgical masks, all different terms. It's interesting to see when people panicked about toilet paper versus when they panicked about face masks.
Yes. That's an interesting, study to make in the future about, what people are thinking about the pandemic. I think Wikipedia will have a lot of information about the page views and the links which they have, like first clicked and then moved on to and so forth. And
right.
So I'm making a pre-announcement of some project which is going on. So there is an article challenge that is coming up. Alex Steenson from the Wikimedia Foundation, he's leading this. So some articles which are important to the pandemic, like the articles on hand washing or social distancing. So they are making a list of articles, and an article challenge will be started, and you can write articles about this list of topics related to COVID-19 in any language you like, and get some points and have some fun. So, but so that will, I think it will be launched in 2 weeks or so. So I'm excitedly looking forward to the article challenge.
Oh, that's nice.
And I think on this page with the page views, I think for research later, it will be very interesting to have it by country and to see when things peaked in various countries and compare to what happened and what was implemented in policy.
Right.
In those
places. Is true.
This is from Apollo. Can you tell us what country this is? Is it Portugal? Is it Brazil? We got increased views on weird stuff like 10 plagues of Egypt due to COVID-19. I think that you're not unusual in that case.
Yes.
Yeah, we
on English Wikipedia, the article about the movie Contagion, that was one of the top 25 articles, which was viewed in, I think, February or March.
Right.
Yeah, so everybody wanted to see about this apocalyptic movie related to the pandemic, and they were looking up information related to that on Wikipedia.
And I shared, I think, in the first episode of the new Wikipedia Weekly Network, we had some increased views of things like the Black Death, the 1918 flu, some other ancient plagues, and some of them are going to be country specific too. Like some people making comparisons recently to a plague that was in Russia in the 1700s, and so there might be some cultural connections there. For each country.
Yeah, the Spanish flu was long for the Swedish Wikipedia, and I guess that was the latest one that actually hit Sweden.
Yeah, you can see this is the graphs for Spanish flu, and also the film Outbreak, the Dustin Hoffman one there. That was the times of different peaks for different things. But it would be interesting to see the pop culture references for, as you said, Contagion, Outbreak, historical films, recent films. Yes. There's a lot of PhD theses in the data.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, so that's great to see. We're going to have that kind of campaign to try to improve articles that Alex is going to launch. You said in 2 weeks now?
Yeah, hopefully in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Mhm. Great. And another thing that we mentioned we had a episode with Emily Temple Wood recently, and we were going through specific articles about locales, and we're going through specifically about how they were trying to put graphical data in there. I think James Heilman also asked about this. Like, how do we do this in a more less manual way of putting in stats and getting things graphed? Do you have any experience with your project or your work with how do we do better in our movement about tabular data and getting graphs and charts and bar graphs automatically generated?
I would really like for small Wikipedias like Malayalam Wikipedia to have the data directly taken from Wikidata, because right now we have too few volunteers who can update this kind of data by looking up different sources. So I think it will be very much less burden on the volunteers when it comes to updation. So I think one of the reasons why a lot of people read the English version of the article and not the Malayalam version is because they think that, okay, in Malayalam the article might not be updated, so they go to the English one, which they think is more updated.
Right.
So I think the readership problem is also because of the updation problem, and vice versa, it could also be true. But I'm not sure what we should do for like bigger languages like English or German. There, people update the content on Wikipedia much faster. And I know that there's also a lot of debating on how much Wikidata stuff you should use on Wikipedia and so forth. So it's an ongoing debate and endless debate. So yes, there should be some mechanism where the user is suggested that, okay, this is what Wikidata says about it. Do you want to accept it or reject it? And if you click accept, then you can have it on your language version. I remember Danny writing a piece about that, about an abstract Wikipedia and how you can, choose to express some part of the abstract Wikipedia on your language Wikipedia.
Yeah,
I found that quite poignant. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that tied in a lot with your project, and I was wondering if perhaps, I mean, something like these translations of these COVID articles might be a good test case or a pilot scenario for something like a multilingual Wikipedia.
Yes, because one of the articles I wrote was about the 2020 coronavirus pandemic in Kerala. And here there are new cases every day, and the government releases like news bulletins every day, and the volunteers have to go to the corresponding this article and update it every day. So I think it's exhausting work because you are listening to news and then you do this and you do that every day. And I couldn't do that myself, even though I started that article and I decided that I will, when I started the article, I was so sure that I will do all the updation. But then after so long time, maybe after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I gave up on that, and it's somebody else who is doing the updation now. So yeah, so it's a lot of this manual work of moving data from one place to another could be reduced. Then it frees up volunteering time, and we could focus on something more creative.
Yeah, I think it's situations like this where we see a massive need on a global scale, right? We've seen disasters hit, like whether it's tsunami or terrorist attack. We're suddenly every language, every locale, we want this facility to be able to graph stuff in real time across languages, across locales. So I'm hoping we can take this up as one of our grand challenges of can we improve the data infrastructure that we have. And this is completely in line with what we've been talking about with our strategic plan, right? This is knowledge equity in its purest form, which is that we should require Malayalam Wikipedia to find 100 data scientists so they can do stuff. No, we be able to share the wealth around, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
And I think we're so close also because the data we have on the screen here, that's tabular data, and we have the possibility to store it on Commons. We just need to find the last missing pieces to unlock this puzzle for us.
Yeah.
Right. Our last show, we saw that. I mean, and I'm fairly new at it. The funny thing is I work with Wikidata and APIs all the time, but I really didn't know much about what Commons had for tabular data. They do have it, but it's all in JSON format. So if you know anything about JSON, it's this really tortured tree-like structure of data. And it's like, well, I just wish we had like a Google spreadsheet. Could we just do a Google spreadsheet? And we just really don't have that facility in our community, right? Oh, wait, what Amir say? Oh, please, oh, please. There's such a prominent case where data should be shared. Yes, thank you, Amir. I know Amir's loving this because not only is he a multilingual guy, he's a data guy. And I have to think it's not that hard. As Jan said, the pieces are right there. We just need to connect the JSON interface, and we have that facility, right?
And I think when a new user shows up, a new reader comes to the page, and then they see that, oh, the article is not updated for today. And when they try to update it, it's a lot of wiki stuff, and they are really discouraged by how it looks like. And I think they leave the project, probably just because of that. So if we make that, I mean, I think I see a potential editor in every reader, and there could be multiple reasons why they don't contribute. So, and it's very easy for them to like notice if something is missing in a table. If a table is not updated, it's quite easy for them to see. If a paragraph is not updated, maybe they are not seeing it and they take it for granted and they go further down. But tables, it will really attract their attention, and they might want to change it themselves. And if we are not allowing them, we are losing a potential contributor, I think.
Right.
Yeah, even something as simple as something as well resourced. There are a lot of editors working on New York topics. We have an article list of disasters in New York by death toll historically, and there's like there's a number there for the number of deaths due to coronavirus. And this is just I started the article. The biggest number before was the deaths due to the HIV/AIDS pandemic in New York, and September 11th was way down there, And this is still updated manually by IP editors. I don't have the capacity to update it every day. And even for New York, which is very affected by the crisis, has a lot of resources, has a large Wikimedia community. It's just done by a random IP editor. And so this is So,
but I think in this case, it's a perfect, where the perfect may not be the enemy of the good. Because I think if we first can get the functionality in there, and then for a while, Wikipedians and other people will be frustrated with, I don't know how to edit it. We will solve how to edit it, but we need to first put in the back end to actually get the data out to all these language versions. And then we can get the interface experts to get on the case.
Right.
To make it easy for people.
Yeah, in case folks didn't see the previous episode, we had actually showed the tabular data, capability, or at least the support for the technology. And if you look on this page, it'll show you all the stuff. And if you look down, this is the representation of that. And if you look at that, it's like, that doesn't look like tabular data to me. That looks like something that's a data structure. But for the average person, I wouldn't know what to do with that, right?
Yeah.
So you want something that's more like a spreadsheet. So I'm ashamed to say, I'm ashamed, I'm proud to say that because this is unusable, I had to create my own system. So this is what I do for the work that Richard and I do. I just made a table in a wiki page and I say, okay, folks, go ahead and hit the edit button and edit this like it's a spreadsheet, and I'll just suck in this table. And that's just like, I don't know, a poor man's version of a spreadsheet, but it's the only thing I know how to direct a newbie to that makes sense, right? So yes, we do need, if we can merge what I just showed you here, looks like a spreadsheet, to create that tabular data in Commons, we're off to the races. So let's do that. It's a hackathon, please. Hackathon.
Oh, there's a hackathon coming up soon.
There is. In fact, that's a great way to say it, that there is a hackathon. There was supposed to be an in-person hackathon, but they're doing it virtually now. So anyone now can sign up to do projects for that hackathon. So yes, well, thank you, Netha, for reminding us that this is something we should put at the top of any wish list. Maybe we could tell the German Wikimedians, please, something to glue the tabular data with the data.
Yeah, definitely. And also, being a Wikipedian for such a long time, I forget that. I forget the experience of how a new editor looks at the, edit. When they click the edit source button, it's a lot of HTML code. And for me, I can perfectly navigate through that. But a new editor sees that differently. And over time, I think that it's as easy for them as it's for me. And there are many perspectives which I'm missing as I become more experienced. So I think we should still look at it with fresh eyes and see what barriers a new contributor is facing, and adapt our interface to that.
Right. What would you like, if you have this platform, to tell folks or ask folks to do something with the COVID-19 content or join the Wiki project? What kind of tasks would you love to see us help out on?
I would like for everyone to write in their own languages about articles related to COVID-19 and articles surrounding that, about hand washing or about how the pandemic is developing in their geographical area. About the socioeconomic impact of the disease and so forth. Try to create as many articles. Also update your, if you work with Wikidata, update Wikidata with news from your geographical area and make information accessible to everyone on the planet. Yeah.
Great. Any other final questions, Jan or Richard?
I think that was a too good note to ask more questions to.
It's been fantastic. Thank you, Netha.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting. Yeah,
thanks for joining us
and talking with you.
And come back again when we can. We hope. We don't know where the end of this is going to be, but I'm sure there'll be much more that is going to be accumulated in that project before everything is done. And I think something that you can tell us a little bit about. This is not going to be like kind of, it's over. It's going to be a weird kind of blending of our new life with our old life. Didn't you think?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And after the pandemic, we are not going back to normal. We are going to something else. So, yeah. And also, I think initiatives like this, where we have conversations online, these should be given more visibility, because I think that would be the gold standard for the future. We may not be having such 1,000-person gatherings quite soon, at least in the next 6 months. So we should be prepared for looking for alternatives like online meetups, other channels. We have to think about other channels to connect with people. And Wikipedia has always been in the forefront for, giving other people ideas. Like, we do something and other people take ideas from us. So yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to be the leaders in making that change. I think we should discuss more and more about meeting virtually and doing things virtually.
Right. Well, we really appreciate your work in this area, and thank you for coming on. And let us know anytime if you want to come back on. We also have more informal sessions. So Jan is a great leader of just editing Wikidata with partners and doing all different things. Richard is great at doing events like Seders and meetups in this virtual space. And we hope this can help be a place where people can kind of virtually gather, even if we can't do the face-to-face summits or conferences. Yeah. So thanks again. And for folks watching, you're either on Facebook, make sure you join the Wikipedia Weekly group if you're interested in that. Or if you're on Twitter, we're on Wikipedia Weekly. If you're on YouTube, find us there. If we get 100 subscribers, we can change our name to something I can actually read on air rather than a long string that I can't actually pronounce. So please go to YouTube and subscribe to us. Or if you're watching on Twitch, welcome. We've had some comments from Twitch in the past. And thank you for the folks who've commented and left information and comments on our feeds here. If you're commenting on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we can see them here and we can surface them here and show them on screen like this. So thanks, Amir, Vera, and other folks for your comments. And we appreciate your support for the Wikipedia Weekly Network, especially in this time of crisis. We really treasure folks who are able to meet together in this forum. So contact us if you have ideas for show ideas and formats. We're always looking for more guests and for more programming for the network. So thanks again, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.